finally, we finish on the head. The reason for finishing on the head is that kids have that tendency to have heat rising and stuff, and by finishing on the head, you release any of that residual heat that's in the body. So you tap on the occiput area, you tap on do 20, you tap along the hairline, and the face and neck are optional. You can tap on the face if there's anything going on there, like sinus congestion or any symptoms in the face. Otherwise, we leave it out. Kids don't really like it that much. It's not that it's painful, it's just kind of funny to have somebody tap them, unless there's something going on like sinus stuff and you feel like you need to tap that. And the same on the neck. You can tap on the neck and then stroke down on the SCM muscle if there's blockage in the eustachian tube or if there's swollen lymph nodes. So that's the pattern. This should take only a few minutes. Not too, what shouldn't be a prolonged process at all. So tapping, watching for the red response. Now he already did this arm, but just to give you the sense of the sort of timing of the whole thing. Got a little red, I flipped the tool over, okay, I'm doing my scraping. And of course, even if you haven't diagnosed by touching, you can be doing that while you're doing the treatment. So I can be feeling any areas of the body feel cold or more warm. Very often you'll find as you're doing this area, kids with more yin deficiency will have more heat to the hands. And as we said yesterday, kids by nature are somewhat yin deficient, and so you may find that kids with more true heat tend to be very consistently hot. And in fact, this area up closer to the elbow can be quite warm in kids with a lot of internal heat. So I could be just paying attention to that as I'm doing the Shonishin on there. Go to this arm. Something there. It's got a little scratch. I'll try not to scrape that off.
He's got a new puppy.
Oh.
So he's covered with the
Cool.
indications of that.
Is there a certain kind of dog?
Flag
Uh-huh. How old is he?
I think 4 months.
Oh, so he's still got a lot of growth. I've got a new puppy. He's 11 months old, though. So she's a Irish wolfhound, so she's really tall. She stands and looks on top of the table when you're eating, getting her heads above the table. So once we've done the arms, then the next place is the chest. I'll step around this way again so you can try to see when I use my right hand. You could certainly reach under a kid's clothes and do this. There's no reason not, but it's better to do it against the skin. You don't want to do it. Now, when Tui-Na, we sometimes use the clothes to actually help slide the hand. But in the Shonishin, you're trying to make the technique faster by using the tool, so you can't go over the clothes. You have to touch the skin with it. So we want to tap that lung 1 area. And then tapping the sternum. Again, this should be very random. And the more you can have your wrist moving forward and back, changing the angles, the better. So the more your wrist is stiff, the slower the reaction. The more your wrist is relaxed. They often compare it to the movement of the wrist that we see when we do the kind of rolling that we see in standard adult Tui-Na. It has that same movement of the wrist forward and back so that the angle of the tapping goes every direction.
You're random in your location, not your rhythm. Is that right?
Right. The rhythm is, but you're random in location and angle of strike. Then we're going to just go down on the sternum. So remember, this is descending the lung chi and the stomach chi. Here, this is the standard protocol. Doesn't mean you can't embellish this or change it based on the condition of the patient you're treating. If he had more stomach reflux, I could certainly work further down. Yesterday we learned pushing down from Ren 12 to the belly button to help descend the stomach more. So although the standard protocol only goes for the sternum, we could go on down to the stomach if that was indicated. And then we go to the abdomen as the next step. We tap all around. And then we turn the tool over and do the scraping. And as I say, you work in small sections, gradually working your way around, trying to make a clockwise circle. Starting to get red there. Then we go to the legs. So we have the stomach and spleen meridian. I usually go right down to liver 3 since I'm using the tapper right there and tap that point. And then flip the tool over. You know, this is sort of the you know, we focused yesterday on the point, the bladder 43 for lingering pathogens. For some reason, the Shonishin practitioners seem to feel that small intestine 11 is very good for that same function. I haven't seen that in standard point discussions, but so that's why they put this little emphasis on getting out onto the shoulder blade there. And again, I could either turn the tool over or pick up the little rake. You can see a little scratchiness from when I used the rake already there. So I'll just use the smooth edge tool here. And if the skin at all seems to get a little scratched, if you put your other hand to work, like kind of soothing the skin after you rub over it, that kind of feels good. Now I'm going to do something here that's not really in the Tuina, not really in the Shonishin system, but in the Tuina, they often use the pinch and roll on the spine, where you try to bring the skin up like this and then walk that little pinch up the, and kids often will feel certain areas a little tight and uncomfortable. That's diagnostic. If the skin is stuck down at that place, you should look at which shoe point level that is to see where that what it might be indicating that organ isn't 100%. So it's a question of pinching the skin up, and after you've done it a couple times, the skin will start to loosen there. The chi moves better, and then walking that little pinch of skin up, and it's a little bit of a strong technique, but especially for kids with developmental problems, that's a very powerful strengthener for the organs. You can see, look at the response just from that working in that area. And I do find that, in fact, like I bet up here, oh yes, look how free the skin is here. Right in here, it's a little hard to, and if you do that, that'll prevent like mechanical problems, orthopedic type problems developing in that area too. Doing that pinch and roll on the skin is good. We end on the head. So we tap on the occiput, do 20. Now they do make a special tool for this as well. This one has a spring in it. The reason for this is on the head, if you go too hard, it hurts because there's a bone behind, and so they give you this one with a spring in it so that you can't accidentally go too hard. It takes up but it's not necessary. You could use the regular needle, you just have to be careful. Don't poke too hard or it's going to be uncomfortable. That doesn't happen on other areas of the body where it's just soft tissue underneath, but on the head. They actually call this a cylinder needle because the needle moves up inside the cylinder, so it doesn't, you can't poke in too hard. Okay, now having done that, activating the chi, it's an easy process to now go into needling. Once I've done this with a kid, I often say to them, and if it's your plan to do needling, it's a good idea if you would have opened the needle in advance, or if you do this while you're still talking to kids so they're not paying so much attention to what's going on, I would open a couple of needles, how many I might plan to use, and say, okay, now I'm going to do some more tapping. So I take the needle, put it on the point, and always start on a point that you know is not in a sensitive area. Even though it may not be the main point you want to use, if this is the first time you were to have experienced needling, I might go for a point like large intestine 11 just because it's, you know, for sure not a sensitive spot. And I take the needle and I just tap on top of the guide tube. And I tap for a minute there to make sure he's okay with that. And if he was at all apprehensive, or I'll take the needle and the tube away, he never sees that the needle was actually inserted. This actually produces still a needle response. Very shallow insertion, but still a needle. And I can go to another point. I'll go to this spot and tap there again. And now if he seemed a little calmer, didn't seem to react to the little insertion at all or anything, this is where I said, now you use a big movement to cover a small movement. I'm over here, and I'm going to put this needle still in over here, but he's not seeing that. And now I'm going to the next point to do the tapping. And if he's okay with that, I could go to the next point over here. And so I'll try to get a few needles in this way, and then I'll do the reveal. You know, it is like a magic trick, right? And oh, the needles are in. Now, some kids are going to be like, and they're going to start pulling them out. I try to stop them if I can in a gentle way. If they pull them out that first time, okay, then I'll put some back in. I'm working within what his acceptance is. And this way, he won't have that ongoing resistance to it. If I kind of let it. So, okay, I get the needles in. Say, oh, it's okay. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? You know, and I'll say, when I take those out, you can do them on your mom. You know? It's a chance to practice their technique. You know? And then I'll reach for my timer. And I'll set the timer and say, those are going to be in for 10 minutes. So when this gets up to there and dings, that's when we'll take them out. So you can watch that. Because, now Sean's a big kid, so I can say 10 minutes. But little kids, they don't know 10 minutes. What does that mean? So they have to have that kind of physical reference for it. Because 10 minutes could be an hour, they don't know. But so the timer's set. Now I could go on and meanwhile do my electric stim. You can see how much I broke my rules. Huh? I didn't have my stuff ready. Said this, one of the preparations, have your equipment ready. Wouldn't it have been better if, as I was doing this, the needles were already open, the electric stim was already set up, so it would flow much. That would be better. I was sloppy in the setting of the lecture here. You know, this wasn't. But it'd be better if these things were ready. I did go to the point of wetting my cotton already, so I have this wet bit of cotton. Stick it in the nose of my little koala here. So now I can feel it here. There's a little bit of a tapping or vibrating sensation. I'm checking it myself. So I'm going to touch some spots with this. You're going to feel like a little tickly feel. So I could take some other points that maybe, I didn't want a needle. Maybe it's sort of, let's do lung 7. I'm going to touch him on there. Strange. Huh? Awkward feeling. That's an interesting. Big kid like this, you could, as I said, actually let him adjust the amount he feels it. So I'm going to. Let's take the needles. Now, one thing you can do, I didn't mention, you could actually go back and touch the point where the needle was in. If you felt like, I wish I'd have did a deeper insertion. I wish I could have gotten a little more stimulus, but he's not ready for that. He's had just his first time or two with needle. I could go back and reinforce the needle stim by putting the electric stim on the point.
Do the sniff.
Yeah. So you have this hand now. You can turn this one if you want it to feel less. You turn it down. You want it to feel more. You turn it up. So I'm going to touch a spot on this side, and we'll see how. Okay. So. Okay, now he's on the point, and now Sean can actually change the intensity according to what's comfortable to him. And I can check it. I've got the ground against my hand, I can touch it, and I can say, oh, that's the level that he feels comfortable with. And now you see the hard part, right? Now, I'm going to do 30 seconds here. Go to another point. And if he moves around a lot, littler kids are often a little squirmy and all of that. You can follow their movement. But then every time you go point to point, make sure you touch it to make sure you're still feeling it. Because sometimes they pull the connection out or something like that. So you want to just make it a habit to check the electric stim as you go point to point to make sure that you're still getting. Otherwise, you discover 3 or 4 points later that it's been unplugged. Now, which points do I have to go back and do? So make it a habit to just tap it with your thumb and feel the amount of the stimulus. So once I've done the points that I'm interested in with the electric stim and taken the needles out, now we have to decide: do I want to maintain any kind of ongoing stimulus on the point? Maybe, again, because we've done fairly light treatment, I might want to do something to keep the stimulus on the point. One way is to use those little metal pellets, these kind of... it's my habit to use these rather than the seeds. It's not that I know that it's better in some way. It's just my habit to use these. I like the little stainless steel ones as opposed to the gold or silver ones. They still seem to make a reaction. So, you just take that and put it on the point. The problem is kids will pick them off right away. The way to get them to leave them on is to put Band-Aids with cartoon figures over the top. I found that works real good. They'll leave them in place. I usually have several different, if you go to any drugstore, they have several different cartoon Band-Aids. So if they can pick the ones they like. It's that much better.
Do you have them take them off after a certain amount of days, or?
I mean, if I'm not going to see them for a long time, if I'm going to see them in a week, they can leave them on usually for that.
Yeah, I did that, and then I had some kids that got stuck in his skin. I was like,
oh, it does. It actually makes a little indentation into the skin. It's never really stuck in there. It'll come off, but it does leave a little indent in there. It is reacting to that. The acid mantle of the skin is reacting with the metal. That's why they're called ion pellets. They actually are said to have an ionic effect and produce some kind of microcurrent there from the... But that's one way, is to use these little pellets. Another way, which is very good, especially for lung things or when you're working on the back shoe point, is to use one of these bruise plasters. And you take the bruise plaster and a scissors, and you cut little squares like this. And these are really good point stimulators then. So you take these and go spin around for a minute. And so, for example, let's say he had some lung congestion, or maybe you're treating a kid with asthma or whatever. And so you can go just to the back shoe point of the lung and stick these bruise plaster on there, and they really create a local point stimulus then. And the aromatic effect that they have is quite nice. It kind of disperses damp and phlegm. And one of these bruise plasters, you can make so many of these squares. It'll last a long time. But you have to choose a brand that's very kind to the skin. You don't want to pick one of them that has red pepper in it or something like that, because...
No recommendation on that?
Yeah, I like this particular brand. It's really easy on the skin. It's called Wu Yang brand pain relieving medicated plaster. It's a pretty commonly available one. Sean's skin is fairly dry, so the plasters stick really easily. if a kid has a more oily skin, wipe it off with a little alcohol first, and you'll get much better adhesion of the plaster on there. As you can see, in his case, they stay on real nice. And once those things are on there, what I would recommend the first time is give however many points you put on, give that many little squares to the parent and tell them to check them at the end of the day, take off the ones that are there and replace them. If the skin looks irritated, then they have to give it a rest, and then they can put those on. But if the skin looks fine, they can then just leave them on indefinitely. Because what happens is the adhesives that are used in these react on some people's skin. And so it's always good to check, even though this is a really well-tolerated brand, that you will have that particular person who reacts to it. So I would just, that first time you use it, there was 10 minutes. So the first time you use it, make sure that you have the parent check later, and so give them the ones to replace the ones they take off. So that's basically the process of all the things: the Shoni sheen, the needling, the cutaneous electric stim, and then any kind of follow-up thing. Oh, let me say one thing about doing moxa on kids. When you do moxa, I don't have a moxa stick to show, but let's just imagine that this is the moxa stick. Always place your hand so that your hand is closer than the child's skin to the moxa stick. This prevents them from bumping into it, and they don't have to tell you when it's too warm. I've taught this so often through the years, and later talked to practitioners who ended up burning kids, because it is human nature. You start like this, and then you drop your hand. And that the minute you drop your hand is when the kid moves back against the moxa stick. So you really have to discipline yourself. Keep your hand on the kid when you're using the moxa stick, and keep it closer, and you won't have a problem. But the minute you hold the moxa stick there without your hand in the way is the minute they bump back into it. And then once they burn themselves, they become really apprehensive about the moxa.
Do you ever use iron rollers or fiber rollers?
I don't, it's just not my habit, so I don't. But as I say, what I often do is not use the moxa at all, but just pull out my trusty, I just pull out my hair dryer. And like you feel a kid who has cold feet, you just get the hair dryer going, and you always rub the heat in with your other hand. Like work on the kidney meridian. You often find on kids who have kidney deficiency, they actually feel quite damp along the kidney meridian between kidney 1, kidney 2, up to kidney 3. Right in there feels moist, you know? That's, rub that heat into there. A lot of times when you look at kids' nails, you'll see that nails look a little dark, or maybe they actually have a line of color through their nails, indicating they're not getting real good peripheral circulation. If you find that, make sure you get this heat down there and really rub down to the toes and get them warmed up, and you really improve that distribution of blood. It's really tonifying. And again, this can get pretty hot too. Your hand is always in the way though, because you're actually doing the rubbing. So you're monitoring the heat. The kid should never have to tell you how hot it is. You know, he's been sitting here in the air conditioning. His feet are a little cold, and it's taken a little while to warm him up, but that's very therapeutic, you know. Often you'll see kids, like little kids who look tired or even a little pale, and you do this, they like pink up so much, and you can see they start to become more active. It's surprising how much tonification from this kind of thing. Go ahead and flip over, lay on your tummy for a minute. I could certainly work on his back, like over the kidney area. Rubbing the heat in. and then turn over on the other side. And then when I do the abdominal rubbing, have this supplementing that. So I'm doing a circular rubbing with this hand. And then we talked yesterday about doing that little vibrating. That's very tonifying. So I've rubbed all that heat in there to strengthen the spleen. And do that little vibrating on the dantian. And as I said yesterday, when you do the vibrating, you really want to see the transmission of that vibration through the whole body. So you always watch to see if their legs are shaking. Cool. Oh, good. It's warm, huh? Thanks, bud. You put shoes on. So that's the
Good patient.
good patient, huh?
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thanks.